Give not thy strength unto women. Give not thy strength unto women. The story of Roger Penzabene. The story of Roger Penzabene. So this is a quote from the book of Proverbs, the 31st chapter. Let's read it. And it was said by a woman, actually, to King Lemuel. This is Proverbs 31 and 1. The words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. So this was a woman that said this. And sometimes you'll get the 100% truth from women regarding women. Some women will not hide to tell you the real deal concerning women, their nature. All right? The words of King Lemuel, and King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. What, my son? And what? The son of my womb? And what? The son of my vows? This is what she said. Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings, because women have destroyed kings, if you give your strength unto them. So this is the story of Roger Penzabene. All right. You might say, well, who the hell is Roger Penzabene? Well, let's read about him. He's very instrumental in Motown. All right. For the songs, the lyrics that he wrote of certain songs. This is from Chimes Freedom. Tag Helga Penzabene. That was his wife. All right. Which he gave his strength to. And she ended up betraying him. And, you know, she went out, stepped out on him. And he took her back. And then finally she left him for good. Which drove him, Roger Penzabene, to the point of suicide. All right, so let's read about it. It says, in the Temptations classic, the Temptations being the soul group called the Temptations, I could never love another after loving you. Y'all might remember, y'all that are my age and older, you will remember that song. I could never love another after loving you. The singer's lover has just told him that she is leaving and he begs her to stay, pleading he could never love another. Many sources explain that the song, and in particular the line, "You've taken away my reason for living," were based on a true story. The story behind the song involves young Motown songwriter Roger Penzabene, who co-wrote I Could Never Love Another, and the similarly, word I always have trouble saying, forgive me, theme, I Wish It Would Rain. Y'all might remember that song, I Wish It Would Rain. Okay, another big hit from the Temptations. The lyrics was wrote by a Sicilian, Roger Penzabene. From the same album, on those songs, his co-writers were Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong, two Motown heavyweights. If you're into Motown, you know who those guys are. He also wrote other songs of Heartbreak, including co-writing Save Me From This Misery for the Isley Brothers. Penzabene and his wife had met as youths at Mumford High School, that's over there in Detroit. But sometimes love does not last forever. Reportedly, Penzabene had taken his wife back after she had an affair. Now, this is a woman that he put on a pedestal. He's a typical so-called Italian, Sicilian stock, and they're heavy into family. So once he decided he wanted to marry that woman, he was all in love with that woman, even though his family told him no, because this was at a time where mixed marriages, so-called mixed marriages, was not really the thing. All right, we're talking the late 50s, early 60s. All right, and the thing is, the Sicilians, especially, that they're nothing but so-called Negroes, man. They're so-called blacks, just like the so-called black man. Okay? So, there's that ignorance. They believe that they were so-called white people. And it wasn't until what? You can Google this. When the so-called Italians were accepted as white. You can actually Google that. I think it was around the 40s or the 1950s. As a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's deviate from that for a slight second. Let's go to open up another browser, and I'll type in, when were the Italians accepted as white? Let's see what we get. When were, in particular the Sicilians, when were the Italians accepted as white? In other words, into white society. When were the Italians accepted as whites? Let's type that in, see what comes up. Because there was a period of time when the so-called Italians were not accepted. All right, let's go. Italians gradually transitioned from being racialized as non-white to being accepted. I hope you Italians are listening. I hope you're listening. You don't know about that now, do you? Italians gradually transitioned from being racialized as non-white to being accepted as white in the United States, a process which white is a construct. There's no such thing as white people. That was a construct created back in 1680, 1681. You can Google this. Okay? A process that largely occurred throughout the 20th century. Initially, particularly in the late 19th and 20th centuries, Italian immigrants, especially those from southern Italy, bing, bing, Sicilians, huh? Sicilians, does that ring a bell? What was Roger Penzabene? He was a so-called Sicilian. Especially those from southern Italy were considered racially inferior, huh? And faced significant discrimination. There you go. There's even in the book called Without Sanctuary, there's a page where Sicilians were hung, particularly in New Orleans. Okay? And now you think that that you accepted by the so-called white society. You're certainly not accepted by the hoi polloi of the so-called white society, the Edomite society. They know your background. They know that you're nothing but niggas. Yeah, niggas. You so-called Italians. How about that? A lot of you. And you better pray you better pray to your holy gods that you are so-called Negroes, because the so-called Negroes are actually Israelites, and salvation is coming to us, beginning with the elect. So how about that? Anyway, let's continue. Their whitening was a result of various factors, including assimilation into American culture. Yeah, and that was around the 40s, going into the 50s, somewhere around there. Advocacy for their racial status, the celebration of Columbus Day, which Columbus, by the way, you see the ignorance compounds. Columbus was not a so-called Italian. Columbus was from Genoa, Spain. He was a so-called Spanish individual, which really he was an Edomite, a so-called Jew at that. His real name was Cristobal Colon. But there's a lot of ignorance. A lot of ignorance, man. And that's what GMS, that's why we exist, to sift through the ignorance and bring out the truth. It says advocacy for their racial status, the celebration of Columbus Day, and shifts in American pop culture, yeah, like the mafia bullshit, and political climate. Okay? So the Italians became accepted. A lot of them, here's what you don't know, a lot of the so-called Italians, just to make it in society, they had to change their last names. So you wouldn't know they were so-called Italian. Like, I'm going to give you an example. There's an artist by the name of, what's his name? Bobby Rydell. All right, Bobby Rydell. He was a singer from the 1960s. What was some of his big hits? As I remember hearing his songs growing up. He actually did the English version of Volare, which I don't like his version. I like the version of Volare that I like is the one done by Domenico Modugno. Domenico Modugno. That's my version. That's the version I like. Which Volare is about a guy who's all in love with some chick with blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay? Trying to assimilate into the so-called white man society. Volare is a good song that goes into that when you understand the Italian lyrics. All right, which I've read the lyrics. I understand what it's saying. I even know how to pronounce it. Okay, because I get into the Italian. I dabble in it. All right, so that's what the song is about. Volare. When he's with this chick, he feels like he's flying. He's flying into the air. Okay, so going back to Bobby Rydell, right? And there's a point to be made. Bobby Rydell, his true name is Bobby Ridarelli. Bobby Ridarelli. So here we have another example of a so-called Italian trying to assimilate into so-called white culture. He had to change his name. His real name is Bobby Ridarelli. And there are other examples of Italians, so-called Italians, that had to change their last name just to fit into so-called white American society. That's not well known. Okay? All right, so enough of that. Let's go back to the subject of Roger Penzabene, right? So Penzabene and his wife, when I tell you what the name Penzabene means, you're going to laugh, okay, after you find out what he did to himself. Penzabene and his wife had met as youths at Mumford High School, but sometimes love does not last forever. Reportedly, Penzabene had taken his wife back after she had an affair. But she ended up leaving him after all. She left after all, which there isn't the point that can be made there. Sometimes it's not good to take these women back. Okay? But, you know, this man was in love. He was totally in love with this woman. All right? Anyway, and this is a cautionary tale, but ended up leaving him after all. As the album with I Could Never Love Another climbed the charts, very famous song from the Temptations, Penzabene killed himself by gunshot on New Year's Eve in 1967, one day before 1968. He was 22. Now, he never lived to see the song become immortal as it is. I Could Never Love Another. Okay? And I Wish It Would Rain. Both songs that he penned. And then there's the other song, You're My Everything. He actually wrote that song for the high voice of what's his name? Not David Ruffin, the other guy, Eddie Kendricks. He actually wrote the song for Eddie Kendricks' style of singing. You know, Eddie Kendricks had a different style than David Ruffin did. Okay? Reading on. Nothing makes the story more convincing than the anguished lead vocals on I Could Never Love Another. Yeah, Ruffin got all into that song. You would have thought he wrote that song, but the truth is Roger Penzabene wrote it by the great David Ruffin, who also died too soon from a tragic death. Yeah, he was a druggie, David Ruffin. The way Ruffin sings the word believe in the first line immediately conveys the heartbreak and pain that permeates the entire song. Right, the heartbreak and pain of Roger Penzabene, who wrote the song. Because his woman left him after he took her back. She left him. Give not thy strength unto women. There's a cautionary tale. To the degree the backstory is true, though we can never really know, Penzabene wrote the great song. And it seems he felt that heartbreak. But suicide is a complicated fact. Were there other factors, variables that attributed to his suicide? Yeah, of course. But the main one was the fact that his wife left and took the children. All right? And he was living for that woman. Okay? And that's well known among the so-called Italians. They're very family-minded people. Okay? So once he built a family with that woman, he was there to stay. All right? That was his mindset. Okay? So when she left and took the children, that destroyed that mindset. No one can dispute that. Okay? He gave his strength unto that woman. That's the point. If everyone who is deeply heartbroken killed herself or himself, our species would have died out long ago. No doubt Pensabene's feelings about his loss contributed to his final act. Yeah, he shot himself in the chest, killing himself instantly. But one could probably point to other things too regarding the young father. Like I said, there could be other variables, all right, when you read the story, but the main variable was the fact that his woman, she took it on the lam, all right? She was gone, never coming back. So he knew, he said, that's it. My relationship with this woman is over. Why? Because he put all kind of stock into that woman. He gave his strength unto that woman. That's the cautionary tale of this video. All right. One could probably point to other things too regarding the young father. Like reportedly, he was losing his sight. Yes, because I read somewhere he was hit in the head with a baseball bat when he was younger. And his sight, I guess he was having trouble with his vision. Could that have added to it? Yeah, I mean, that's a hell of a thing to lose your vision. But that's not what totally threw him over the edge. Okay, what threw him over the edge was the fact that his woman is left. You can't dispute that. She left. Okay, like reportedly was losing his sight at the time due to a head injury. Right, when he was younger, he was hit in the head with a baseball bat. So I suspect that there is more to the story than someone was heartbroken, wrote a sad song, and then killed himself. Penzabene's wife, Helga Penzabene, at the time was very young herself, caring for the couple's 2 young sons, Roger Jr. and 10-month-old Carl. And I saw a picture of Roger Jr. He looked just like his father, but he looked like a so-called black man. All right, you'll see. I'll show you the pictures. Since then, she has tried to set the record straight by clarifying that Roger did not kill herself. Roger did not kill himself over her. Bullshit. But that, once again, let's go back to the scripture. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. This woman, Helga, which I forgot her last name, when she married Penzabene, she took on his name. This so-called black woman, you're going to see, she was for the streets, okay? She was for the streets. And the scripture says, such is the way of an adulterous woman. Let's get that. Adulterous woman. Because remember, she cheated on him. He took her back, and then she's for the streets. I mean, what other way can I say it? Proverbs 30:20. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. What do you think that means? Meaning she does all her dirt and acts like she didn't do anything wrong. It's amazing with these women how they're able to do that, man. They don't feel no way when they've done their wickedness. That's as it is written, from women come wickedness. That is clearly written. Roger Penzabene had to find that out the hard way. Anyway, since then she has tried to set the record straight by clarifying that Roger did not kill himself over her. In 2012, she wrote in the comments to a post on Elvis Needs Boats that she was alive and well, living in Mount Clemens. Now listen to this. Show you that this woman is for the streets. Living in Mount Clemens, Michigan. She has remarried twice. So since the killing of her first husband, Roger Penzabene, back in 1967, the last day of 1967, 1968, since then till 2012, when this comment was made, or this comment was post, she had remarried twice. Probably cheating on those other men that she was with. That's what she did. That's what she does. This woman in question. She has remarried twice, most recently divorced. and she still sang. Right. She was an industry chick. She never made it big in Motown. But she knew the big stars of Motown, especially the men. She knew them and palled around with them. So no doubt she ended up sleeping with them. Okay? Committing adultery on this man, her first husband, Roger Penzabene. Right? So she was for the streets. She was a loose woman. She has remarried twice, most recently divorced, and she still sang. She reported that she was working on a book about her life with Roger. The book was never written. Helga passed away in 2016 from cancer. I suspect, though, that whatever might have been written in a book many would still choose to believe the less complex, heartbroken suicide version. We need tragic heroes, and the song is too good and the temptation's too awesome to believe that the songwriter did not kill himself over losing his reason for living, but he did. And there's a picture of David Ruffin out front singing the song, I Could Never Love Another. Once you hear the song, you'll instantly recognize it. So now you know the backstory of those songs, who wrote it. Now let's go to the pictures before I end this video. Because what I did was I Googled Roger Penzabene. I find, it's a fascinating story. There he is right there. Guy looks like an Ephraimite or an Issacharite, but he's actually a Sicilian, of Sicilian stock. There's Roger Penzabene right there. And the last name Penzabene is Italian for think well. Now how's that for irony? The man's last name is think well, or to think good, and he ends up killing himself. So he wasn't having good thoughts when he shot himself in the chest, killing himself instantly. Penzabene, that's what Penzabene means. Penza means think, bene means well, think well. Right? And let me show you his lovely wife. The one that he lost his mind over. There she is right there in the white. She had the nerve to wear a white dress. The 304 herself. And there's Roger sitting right next to her with the big, look at the big smile. Look at the big Kool-Aid smile on his face. He got his beautiful bride, so-called black woman. And even though his family told him, don't do it, don't do it. Right? Kind of reminds me of the story of the lead singer of the Young Rascals who became the Rascals, Felix Cavalieri. The same thing with him. His family told him not to, his father in particular told him just be a doctor. But Felix Cavalieri was heavy into soul music at that time. So he decided to be a singer, And he was getting into particularly so-called black music. That's why when you listen to the song, I've Been Lonely Too Long by the Rascals, you think it's a so-called black man singing it. But it is a so-called black man singing it. His name, the lead singer, is Felix Cavalieri from the Rascals. Okay? So that kind of reminds me of that. I remember reading about that. All right, his father in particular, Felix Cavalieri, didn't care for so-called black people. All right? So there you go. So there's a picture of Roger Penzabene sitting with his wife, Helga. I forgot her last name. She took on the last name Penzabene, Helga Penzabene. They both came out of Detroit. Okay? And the guy who introduced, that's his best friend right there. The Jake there, in the middle there. The tall Jake in the middle. That's his best friend, Roger Penzabene. They were childhood friends. He's the one who introduced Penzabene to Motown. And the rest is history. All right, so hopefully you brothers were edified by this lesson. This is just another example of why you should never give your strength unto women, like the scripture says. All right, remember this guy, Roger Penzabene. He gave his all to his woman. He used his raw talent to please his woman, but especially the so-called black woman. You can never please her, man. Like the song by Prince, the song When Doves Cry. Maybe you're just like my mother, she's never satisfied. You can never please these women. That's why you have to please yourself. You brothers, man, concentrate on this ministry. Concentrate on my final comment to you concerning this video is concentrate on this ministry. And if the woman don't want to go along with, she's supposed to go along with you, not guide you. No, you're supposed to guide her. She's supposed to go along with you. She's your servant, not the other way around, man. So wake up, man. Wake up, okay? This is just another example. All right, so on that note, I'll see you in the next video.